The room was silent. Not the kind of silence that begged for attention, but the kind that demanded it. Lucas Williams, the youngest and most powerful CEO at Williams Corporate Group, stood still at the head of the boardroom table. His tie loosened, his hand shaking ever so slightly as his eyes stayed locked on the woman sitting across from him, Ava Jones. Ava sat upright. Her eyes were firm, but her voice trembled just enough to betray what her heart was holding in. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," she said. Lucas stepped forward, the tension in the room nearly choking the breath out of the other executives present. Phones buzzed, but no one dared pick them up. "Why didn't you tell me, Ava?" he asked, voice low but cutting. She exhaled, slow and heavy, as though this truth had been clawing at her ribs. "Because I didn't want to be your scandal." Gasps didn't follow. The shock was too fresh. One mistake, one night, one secret, and now the entire 47th floor knew. Ava's hand rested gently on her belly beneath the tailored charcoal blazer. She wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't asking for rescue. But now, she couldn't hide the truth any longer. Mistakes don't always wear warning labels. Sometimes they show up in the form of one glass too many, a celebration that runs late, or a look held a few seconds longer than it should be. Ava Jones had built her life around being careful, careful with her time, careful with her heart, careful with her reputation. She knew what it meant to work twice as hard for half the credit. She also knew that one wrong move in the corporate world, especially as a black woman, could mean starting over, again. So when the lines between professional and personal blurred for one night, she convinced herself it meant nothing, that she could move on, that her job, her image, her world would stay untouched. But it only takes one secret to shift the balance. Have you ever done something that wasn't part of your plan, something you never thought you'd do, but suddenly it rewrites every part of your future? Have you ever carried a truth alone because telling it might break everything you've worked so hard to build? Ava didn't want sympathy. She wanted to survive. But survival meant silence, until silence could no longer protect her. Ava didn't plan to fall for Lucas Williams. In fact, she didn't fall at all. It was never about love. It was about exhaustion, celebration, and proximity colliding under soft lights and champagne buzz. The company's merger party was a night to remember, but Ava wanted to forget it the moment the sun came up. Lucas, her boss, billionaire, white, reserved, untouchable. Her, black, grounded, focused, determined to never be a headline in someone else's drama. Yet that night, the rules didn't matter. What came after changed everything. She didn't tell him. She couldn't. She adjusted her blazers, skipped happy hours, dodged his gaze in elevators, all to protect the life she was building, and the one growing inside her. She convinced herself it was better this way. No awkward HR talks, no pity, no office gossip, but secrets don't respect schedules. Lucas began noticing. The fatigue, the silence, the changes. Still, Ava said nothing, because this wasn't just about her job or his name. It was about the fear that no matter how smart, responsible, or capable she was, people would only see the baby, the scandal, the mistake. So she chose silence, until silence broke itself. The walls of corporate life are made of glass, transparent, unforgiving, and echoing with whispered judgment. Ava thought she could keep her truth hidden behind polished emails, tight schedules, and tailored suits. But when Lucas found out, when the office felt the energy shift, saw the blinds close, heard the silence crack, that truth became everyone's business. In one moment, Ava's carefully managed world tilted. She wasn't just a project manager anymore. She was the story, the question, the fuel behind every hallway conversation. But something happened no one expected. Lucas didn't run. He didn't hide. He stood up, in front of the board, the staff, the world, and what he said left everyone stunned. So now we ask you, what happens when the man at the top risks it all for the woman everyone thought was just another employee? What does it look like when dignity meets devotion, in full view of the same people who once whispered behind closed doors? And more importantly, what does it take to love out loud when silence was once your only safety? If you've ever had to hide your truth just to survive, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because what's about to happen next, you won't see it coming. Baltimore raised Ava Jones with more grit than glamour. She was the oldest of three, though only her youngest brother was still in the house now. Her mother, a nurse who had spent years working night shifts, suffered a mild stroke that left her semi-dependent. Ava stepped up without complaint. That was her nature. Responsibility before rest, duty before dreams. Their two-bedroom row house on Monroe Street wasn't fancy, but it held a kind of warmth money couldn't buy. Pictures of Sunday dinners, graduation caps, and church programs were tucked between bills and grocery lists on the fridge. Ava never had the luxury of indulgence. After high school, she earned a scholarship to Pace University and took side jobs to cover what grants didn't. Her internships weren't at glamorous startups, but at firms where she could learn structure, sacrifice, and climb. She didn't party. She didn't slip. Every morning before the sun rose, she called her mom to check her vitals. Every payday, she split her check, part for the house in Baltimore, part for bills in New York. Her brother, still in high school, leaned on her for tutoring and advice. She had to be more than a sister. She was the second backbone of their family. And now, at Williams' corporate group in Manhattan, Ava finally had her shot. Yet even as her titles improved, she never let herself relax. She knew the rules for women like her. No mess, no noise, no room for mistakes. So she planned everything. Until the one night she didn't. Williams' corporate group was not built for the soft-hearted. Tucked into a towering skyscraper near Bryant Park, it moved like a machine, efficient, ambitious, and sharp. The elevators barely gave time to breathe. The conference rooms weren't designed for comfort, they were built for power. Ava excelled here, not by blending in, but by keeping her boundaries tight. She wore tailored blazers that said, "I'm here to work," and carried herself with a grace that discouraged unnecessary chatter. She wasn't cold, just careful. Her co-workers knew she was smart, respectful, and strategic. She spoke only when she had something to say, and when she did, people listened. Lucas Williams, her CEO, was rarely seen by most of the staff. He operated from the top floor and rarely ventured into the daily hustle. Yet Ava had managed to catch his attention early, not for anything romantic, but for her insight. In a company flooded with voices, hers had weight. Still, she never confused his recognition for relationship. Their interactions were brief, professional, and always respectful. That's how she liked it. That's how it had to be. In a world where one slip could define you forever, Ava kept her guard up, especially around powerful men. So when the annual corporate gala approached, she told herself it was just another event. A few speeches, some champagne, and she'd be out by 10. She had no idea how far from the plan that night would drift. The gala was held at the Mandarin Ballroom, a luxurious glass-lined venue with golden lighting and soft jazz echoing off the marble. It was meant to celebrate a massive international merger, one Ava had worked endless nights helping to secure. She arrived in a sleek black gown, modest but elegant. Her curls were pinned back and her heels clicked with purpose. She wasn't there to impress, she was there to represent. Lucas was already present when she arrived, surrounded by board members and investors. He looked different out of the office, more relaxed, less calculated. A clean tux, no tie, sleeves rolled up just enough to feel approachable. As the night wore on, speeches were made, champagne glasses refilled, and laughter grew louder. Ava, drained from weeks of overtime, finally accepted a second glass of champagne. Tasha, her best friend from accounting, teased her for letting loose, but even Ava's version of loose was mild by anyone else's standard. Lucas eventually approached her, drink in hand. "You saved this merger," he said, tone softer than she'd ever heard. "I owe you more than just a bonus." They talked, not about work, but about music growing up in Baltimore, and how Lucas spent summers as a teenager in Connecticut learning to build fences on his grandfather's land. The conversation was easy, warm, unexpected. Later that night, as people filtered out and lights dimmed, Ava found herself still standing beside him, close, comfortable. She didn't mean for her hand to brush his, but it did, and neither pulled away. It wasn't passion that pulled Ava and Lucas together. It was exhaustion, gratitude, the rare human need to not feel so alone. The car ride back to his penthouse was quiet, not awkward, just heavy with the kind of silence that says everything without words. They didn't fumble. It wasn't wild or dramatic. It was gentle, Lucas asked before he touched. Ava hesitated before she answered, but when she whispered yes, it wasn't from weakness. It was from choosing, for once, to let herself feel something instead of constantly managing everything. The room was large but felt small. The sheets were expensive but meaningless. Their connection was real, even if neither knew what to call it. When Ava woke, the skyline blinked through the windows. Lucas was still asleep beside her, one arm across his eyes, as if shielding himself from daylight and reality. Ava slipped out quietly. No note, no goodbye, no reason to explain what she hoped would stay unspoken. This wasn't love, it wasn't a relationship, it was one night. And that was all it would ever be. At least, that's what she told herself. The following Monday, Ava didn't show up to the morning briefing. By Tuesday she was back, but not the same. She kept her head down, eyes focused, her voice lower than usual. Tasha noticed immediately. "You good?" she asked, cornering her in the break room. "I'm fine. Just tired," Ava lied. Lucas, too, seemed altered. He didn't approach her, didn't look at her too long. But when he passed by, his usual firm nod turned hesitant. Ava buried herself in work. She spoke only when necessary, and left the office exactly at 5. It wasn't avoidance, it was protection. Her chest tightened every time his name popped up in meeting memos. Every time she felt his presence in the room. She didn't regret what happened, but she needed it to stay sealed. If anyone found out, it would ruin everything. She was a woman in a male-led company, a black woman in a white-led firm. She couldn't afford whispers, let alone exposure. And Lucas? He had everything to lose too. So she said nothing, not even when the nausea started. At first she blamed the exhaustion on stress. Her appetite dipped, her skin changed. She was late, but she was always irregular. Still, a week passed. Then another. She took the test on a cold Saturday morning, alone in her Harlem apartment. Positive. Ava sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, lips pressed tight. The small white stick stared back at her with brutal certainty. She didn't cry. Not right away. Instead, her mind raced through spreadsheets, deadlines, doctor appointments, and worst-case scenarios. She imagined her mother's disappointment, her brother's confusion, the HR policies, the rumors. She wasn't married, she wasn't rich, she wasn't ready. But she was pregnant, and the father was her boss. For the next few days, Ava moved like a ghost through the office. She kept mints in her bag to hide the morning sickness. She began carrying oversized purses and started wearing blazers that didn't cinch. She set reminders on her phone for water, naps, vitamins. She avoided elevators where Lucas might be, and when she saw him in meetings, she didn't flinch. She just existed, alone, quietly falling apart while trying to keep it all together. Ava had always dressed with quiet precision, sharp blazers, clean lines, nothing flashy. But now, each morning came with a private negotiation in front of the mirror. Her fitted suits no longer zipped the way they used to. Her usual pencil skirts clung too tightly around the waist. Slowly, she transitioned to looser fabrics, flowy tops layered under long cardigans, and slacks that offered room without raising eyebrows. She even changed her hairstyle, trading in her signature twist-out for a sleek low bun. It wasn't just fashion. It was camouflage. The goal, vanish in plain sight. She also adjusted her work schedule. Early meetings became harder. She'd sneak into the building through the back lobby to avoid long elevator chats. At lunch, she sat with her laptop in conference rooms, skipping the break room entirely. Her appetite came and went. She avoided the smell of microwaved food like it was poison. Some days she only managed crackers and peppermint tea between back-to-back tasks. Despite her efforts, fatigue clawed at her. By 2 p.m., her body ached. By 4 p.m., she found herself checking the clock every 5 minutes, desperate to make it to the end of the day, but no one could know. Not yet. If the wrong person found out, everything she'd worked for could slip away. Lucas could deny involvement. HR could investigate her. The whispers could start. So Ava kept moving, even when every step felt heavier than the last. Lucas wasn't the type to hover. He ran his company from a strategic distance, stepping in only when necessary. But Ava had always stood out, not just for her competence, but for her rhythm. She was consistent, organized, reliable. So when that rhythm started slipping, he noticed. She fumbled during a budget meeting. Her normally tight presentations were slightly rushed. She double-checked figures she usually had memorized. She began turning down leadership breakfasts she once took pride in attending. At first, Lucas assumed she was burnt out. The merger had drained the entire team. But there was something else. She avoided his eyes now. Their interactions, once crisp and natural, became brief and flat. During one meeting, Ava knocked over her water bottle and froze as it spilled onto a stack of reports. Her hands trembled as she cleaned it. Lucas watched her carefully. It wasn't like her to lose control. Not over data, not over her body language. After the meeting, he waited in the hallway until she exited the conference room. "Everything all right?" he asked casually. "Yes, just tired," she replied, not slowing her pace. But her eyes didn't meet his. That was the moment it clicked. Something was wrong, and she didn't want him involved. The question that haunted him as she walked away wasn't, "What's wrong with Ava?" It was, "What happened between us? And what haven't you told me?" Tasha didn't miss much. They'd started at the firm around the same time, bonded over navigating the unspoken rules of being two black women in a space that expected them to work twice as hard and smile 3 times as wide. When Ava started bringing saltine crackers to morning meetings and breathing a little heavier during team huddles, Tasha noticed. When she stopped wearing heels and started keeping ginger candies in her desk drawer, Tasha noticed that too. One afternoon, while fixing her coffee, Tasha casually leaned into Ava's cubicle. "You good, sis?" "I'm fine. Just swamped," Ava replied. "You've been swamped for 2 weeks straight, Ava. Come on now." Ava looked up, trying to appear annoyed, but her eyes gave her away. Tasha closed the door behind her and lowered her voice. "You late, aren't you?" Ava froze. Tasha sighed and sat. "I'm not judging. But hiding it from everyone? That's not healthy. I need time to figure this out," Ava whispered. "I can't afford for anyone to know. Especially not him." "You think Lucas doesn't already know something's up?" Tasha whispered back. "Girl, the man watches you like you're a spreadsheet with a flaw." Ava gave a tight smile, then looked away. Tasha didn't press further, but before leaving, she dropped a folded note on Ava's desk, the name of a quiet OBGYN in Harlem who didn't ask too many questions. Blake Carrington, COO of Williams Corporate Group and Lucas's longtime friend from Yale, wasn't just there to protect the company, he was there to protect Lucas too. Over lunch at their usual midtown spot, Blake leaned back and stirred his iced tea. "I'm going to say this once, and we won't talk about it again, unless it explodes." Lucas, reading emails, looked up. "Go ahead." "Ava." Lucas's brow twitched. "What about her?" Blake lowered his voice. "Something's different. I've seen her change over the past month. You're not blind, and neither is half this company." Lucas stayed quiet. "I'm not asking for details," Blake continued, "but if there's something going on, or something that happened, handle it, quietly, cleanly." "You think I'd put her in a position like that?" Lucas said defensively. "I think one night can change everything," Blake replied, "especially when feelings get confused and rumors become policy violations." Lucas clenched his jaw. "You built this company from scratch," Blake reminded him. "Don't let one private decision become a public liability." Lucas said nothing. But for the rest of the day he couldn't focus. His screen blurred. Ava's silence now had a weight he couldn't ignore, and somewhere inside him a quiet fear started to grow. The quarterly strategy meeting was in full swing. PowerPoint slides rotated, charts rose and dipped, voices overlapped with projections and jargon. Ava stood at the front, presenting a Q2 financial model, pointer in one hand, notes in the other. But halfway through her sentence, the room tilted. She blinked rapidly. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her heart thudded so loudly she could barely hear her own voice. Lucas watched her carefully. "Ava?" he said gently. I just need a second," she whispered. Before anyone could respond, Ava stumbled backward and caught herself on the edge of the table. Tasha stood immediately. "Someone get her water." Lucas was already moving. He placed a hand on her lower back and guided her toward the chair. The room went quiet. All eyes watched. "I'm fine," she muttered, her voice tight. "Just lightheaded." She refused to let them see her panic. Lucas crouched beside her. "You should take the rest of the day off. I can finish the—" "No," he interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You've done enough." Later that evening, as the offices emptied, Ava remained at her desk. She stared at the glowing screen, motionless. One mistake, one slip, and now the rumors would begin. She could already feel the shift in energy. The walls were glass, and someone had seen inside. Lucas came looking for her. He had a document that needed final review. Her door was cracked. He knocked, waited. No response. He stepped in. The report was on her desk, neatly labelled. As he grabbed it, his elbow nudged a small open box at the corner. Pills clattered softly inside. He paused. Inside the box were prenatal vitamins, clear as day. The label showed a prescription in Ava's name. His pulse quickened. He stared for a full minute, frozen in place. He didn't touch anything else. He didn't speak. He left the office silently, documents in hand, but his world shifted with every step. Back at his floor, Lucas sat down and closed his door. It all made sense now. Her distance, her exhaustion, her fainting, her silence. And the one thing he couldn't stop thinking, the 10th floor restroom wasn't usually a place for serious conversations. But on Thursday afternoon, with most staff in the executive conference, it became the only safe space Ava had. She leaned against the granite countertop, her hands gripping the edge as she fought the nausea creeping up again. Tasha stood beside her, watching her with equal parts concern and frustration. "You can't keep pushing like this," Tasha whispered. "You almost passed out in that strategy meeting." "I'm fine," Ava muttered, rinsing her face with cold water. Tasha handed her a paper towel. "You're not fine. You're pregnant, tired, and scared out your mind." Ava froze. "Can you say it any louder? No one's in here. Wrong." Lucas had stepped into the hallway just as the door cracked open. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. He'd been searching for Tasha about the quarterly projections, but one word stopped him in his tracks. Pregnant. "And then, you haven't told him, have you?" Ava's voice came through quieter this time. "No, he doesn't know, and I plan to keep it that way." Lucas backed away slowly, his mind spinning. He had guessed. But hearing it confirmed shattered something inside him. And worse, knowing Ava planned to keep him in the dark. He turned sharply and headed for his floor, fists clenched. This wasn't just personal. This was betrayal. Lucas didn't think. He didn't schedule a conversation. He didn't ask HR. He walked straight to Ava's office, ignoring Blake, who called after him in the hallway. Ava had just returned to her desk, sipping warm ginger tea, when the door burst open. Lucas stepped in and shut it behind him, hard. She jumped. "Sir." He didn't speak at first. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he paced twice, stopping just feet away. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Ava's heart dropped. "Tell you what?" He locked eyes with her. "That you're pregnant." The air thinned. Ava's hands went cold. "How long were you going to hide it? Until someone else confronted me in a meeting? Until HR flagged a leave request?" Ava stood slowly, clutching the edge of her desk. "You had no right." "I had every right," Lucas snapped. "I'm the father, Ava." Silence. She stepped back. "You weren't supposed to find out this way, because you didn't want me to know at all." He looked at her like she'd just stolen something from him, something he never had a chance to fight for. And in that moment, Ava realized this conversation was no longer about professionalism. It was personal. It always had been. The voices inside Ava's office began rising, soft at first, but sharp enough for heads to lift outside in the hallway. Lucas reached for the blinds and yanked them closed, one by one, until the glass office became a box of tension. "I'm not mad that you're pregnant," he said. "I'm mad that you erased me from something that belongs to both of us." Ava's breath caught. "Belongs? Lucas, you don't get to frame this like a merger agreement." "Then help me understand," he said, stepping closer. "Help me understand how you thought keeping this from me was the right call." Her arms crossed tightly over her stomach. "I didn't want the judgment, the whispers, the narrative. So instead you let me walk around like a clueless idiot while you carry my child." Ava's voice cracked. "I did what I had to do to survive in a place that would have crucified me for even breathing near the top floor." Lucas's jaw tensed. "You think I would have let that happen?" "I don't know what you would have done," she shot back. "That's the problem. Outside the glass walls, employees pretended to work, but everyone knew something heavy had dropped." Ava sat down slowly, covering her stomach with her arms. "I didn't plan any of this, Lucas," she whispered. His expression softened, but only slightly. "I didn't come here looking for a savior. I worked hard. I stayed in my lane. That night, it wasn't supposed to change anything. I told myself I'd keep quiet, push through, and no one would know." Lucas stared at her, still catching up to the gravity of her silence. "But when I found out I was pregnant, I wasn't afraid of being a mom. I was afraid of being a mistake." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want to be your scandal, your PR problem. The reason the board whispered about your judgment." Lucas didn't speak. I didn't want to be your problem, she finished, wiping her eyes. The room went still, and for the first time, Lucas saw not just the strong, composed woman who ran numbers better than anyone, but the exhausted, cornered human trying to protect the one thing no one could help her carry. The second Lucas exited her office, everything changed. The hallway, once full of noise, fell into a suspicious hush. His tie loosened, brows drawn low, Lucas walked like a man under pressure. And Ava, still behind the blinds, was nowhere to be seen. By noon, Slack messages flew faster than email blasts. Why were the blinds closed for that long? He looked like he just saw a ghost. She's been sick lately. You think it's related? Ava stepped out an hour later, calm but unreadable. She walked straight to the elevator without speaking to anyone. Even Tasha watched in silence. No one dared ask aloud what they were all thinking, but the whispers grew, and so did the speculation. From interns to senior execs, everyone knew something had cracked, and no one knew what the fallout would look like yet. That evening, the boardroom lights flickered back on for a meeting no one had seen on the schedule. Executives were called in. Assistants rushed to reschedule late dinners. HR reps sat stiff near the wall. Lucas entered without fanfare. No coffee, no smile, just presence. I'll be brief, he said, standing at the head of the table. A few curious glances exchanged around the room. Something personal has become public. I want clarity before rumors take root. He paused, then looked out over the room. There's going to be a child, one that I take full responsibility for, and I ask that this company respect the privacy of the mother, Ava Jones. Chairs shifted. Eyes widened. I stand by my decision, he continued. She is not a scandal. She is not a risk. She is the most focused, loyal, and honorable employee I've worked with. Lucas closed the folder in front of him. I won't be taking questions. Let this be the last word spoken behind her back. Then he turned and walked out, leaving silence and stunned expressions behind him. The boardroom was never meant for emotional confessions. It was built for sharp decisions, projected charts, and the quiet clatter of laptops. But on this day, the room felt heavier than usual. The long table, surrounded by executives and high-ranking department heads, carried the weight of curiosity and unease. They had been called to an urgent discussion. No agenda, no prep material, no hint of what was coming. Lucas entered with a rigid posture and an expression reserved for moments that changed companies. Except this time, he wasn't here to talk about revenue or shareholders. He walked to the head of the table, hands resting on the smooth surface. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. Thank you for coming on short notice, he began. His voice held a firmness that made even the most seasoned executives sit straighter. Blake stood off to the side, arms crossed tightly, studying Lucas like he was preparing for damage control. We have always been a company that values transparency, Lucas continued. I've built this firm with honesty, accountability, and fairness. So today, I need to say something that affects me personally and professionally. Brows furrowed. A few pens stopped clicking. This concerns an employee, eyes narrowed. It concerns Ava Jones. A ripple of whispers broke the quiet. Lucas raised a hand. Silence snapped back instantly. I'm not here to discuss her performance. She is one of the most disciplined and dependable employees in this building. But something has come up that requires clarity before rumors grow legs. He took a breath, the kind that carried a man into truth he couldn't walk away from. She is expecting a child. Some jaws dropped, others stiffened, but no one dared speak. Lucas didn't waver. And I am the father. The room froze. Every gaze sharpened, every breath paused, every unspoken thought collided at once. The boardroom, a place of logic, was now the stage for the most vulnerable truth in Lucas's career. No one was prepared for it, not even him. Once Lucas broke the silence, he didn't stop, he didn't waver, he didn't leave space for interpretation. Ava is not a mistake, he said firmly. She is the mother of my child, and the woman I respect most in this company. That sentence landed like thunder. A few executives exchanged stunned looks. One board member fumbled her pen. Another leaned back with a slow exhale, processing the weight of Lucas's words. But Lucas didn't flinch. He stood tall, shoulders squared, voice grounded with conviction. I take full responsibility for what happened, and I will not tolerate any disrespect toward her or speculation about her role here. He looked around the room. examining every face. Let me be clear. No one coerced anything. No policies were violated. What happened occurred outside this building, outside business hours, during a company event where two adults made a choice. Another heartbeat of silence. A male executive finally cleared his throat. Sir, this will generate questions. The press... Lucas cut him off. Let them ask. I'll answer. His tone left no room for argument. Your concern should not be the headlines. Your concern should be ensuring that Ava continues to work in an environment free from judgment. He paused again, letting every word settle. I stand by her, fully. Even Blake, usually the one urging caution, couldn't hide a flicker of respect in his expression. Lucas wasn't choosing the easy road, he was choosing the honest one. When the meeting adjourned, no one moved at first. It was as if the room needed time to breathe again. Even the glass walls seemed to hold their breath. Executives stared at each other, some in disbelief, others in quiet admiration, a few in flat confusion. Then the whispers began. Not loud, not chaotic, but sharp enough to travel. He really said it. Ava, of all people? How long has this been going on? This will change everything. Some stayed seated, lost in thought. Others slipped out quickly, phones already in hand to update assistants or spouses. A few remained frozen, replaying every interaction they'd ever had with Ava. Her professionalism, her silence, her sudden wardrobe changes, her fainting spell, her closeness, or lack thereof, with Lucas. It all made sense now. But sense didn't make the shock any softer. Outside the boardroom, employees paused mid-walk as the senior team filed out. They read the expressions, tension, awe, disbelief, and knew something enormous had just happened. Ava's name traveled faster than the elevator. And though no one had the full story yet, everyone felt the impact. The firm's foundations hadn't cracked, they had shifted. Ava didn't know until she stepped off the elevator, the stairs, the sudden hush, the way people paused mid-sentence when she passed. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she saw Blake exiting the boardroom with a look that confirmed everything. Her stomach dropped. Someone, somehow, had spoken her truth. When Lucas stepped out a moment later, their eyes met across the corridor. His expression wasn't cold, it wasn't angry, it was firm, protective. That terrified her more than anything. He approached slowly. I told them. Everything they needed to know. No lies, no hiding. Ava felt her throat close. Her chest tightened. You said it publicly. I wasn't going to let you go through this alone. Her pulse hammered. Her hands trembled. Her world spun. She turned away abruptly, her eyes burning. I can't do this. I can't. Not like this. Ava. But she was already gone, pushing through the crowd, heading straight for the stairwell. She didn't wait for the elevator. She didn't want to hear explanations or comfort or promises she wasn't ready for. She needed air, space, silence, and a place where no one knew her name. Ava closed the stairwell door behind her and leaned against it, the weight of everything crashing into her at once. She didn't cry. She shattered quietly. Lucas found her 2 floors down, sitting on the steps with her knees drawn close, staring at nothing. He didn't approach quickly. He didn't kneel dramatically or try to touch her. He simply sat a few steps above her, close enough to show presence, far enough to give room. It wasn't my place, Ava whispered. You shouldn't have said it. Lucas exhaled slowly. I had to. No, she said sharply. You wanted to. I did, he admitted, because watching you carry all of this alone was wrong. Ava stared down at her hands. Now everyone will look at me differently, like I'm weak, like I slept my way into a better life, like I'm... Stop. His voice softened but held strength. No one gets to define you with lies. You've earned everything here. You've worked harder than anyone. She shook her head. Respect doesn't erase judgment, and silence doesn't erase truth, he replied. You were drowning. I refuse to stand back and watch you sink just to protect my image. Ava swallowed hard. Lucas continued, I didn't speak to expose you. I spoke to shield you. She lifted her eyes to him, finally letting him see the fear she'd swallowed for weeks. What if this ruins everything? She whispered. Lucas held her gaze. Then I'll rebuild it with you, a promise without theatrics, a vow without conditions. It was the first moment Ava let herself breathe again. Later that evening, long after the offices emptied and the city lights blinked against the windows, Ava stood alone beside her desk, replaying everything. She expected judgment, disappointment, abandonment. Instead, Lucas had chosen responsibility, openly, firmly, without shame. He didn't hide. He didn't deflect. He didn't pretend the child wasn't his. He walked toward the truth, even when it cost him. When Lucas returned to the floor with 2 cups of chamomile tea, he placed one gently on her desk. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," he said, "but know this, I'm not going anywhere." Ava didn't speak, but the tightness in her chest eased just enough to let her breathe. The moral was clear, and it wasn't just for her. A real man doesn't walk away from truth, he walks toward it, even when the world is watching. The day after Lucas's confession, Ava submitted her leave request with shaky fingers and a blank expression. HR didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. Her name had already become the center of every side glance and whispered conversation in the hallways. Though no one said anything directly to her face, Ava felt it, in the slight pauses during meetings, in the too kind greetings, in the uneasy silences when she entered a room. It wasn't just office noise. It was exhaustion. Months of carrying a secret, pretending to be fine, holding her body together while her spirit frayed. And now, she couldn't pretend anymore. Lucas's public stand didn't anger her. It stunned her. It softened something. But it also exposed her in ways she hadn't prepared for. She needed air. She needed time. So for the first time in years, Ava stepped away from work. No laptop, no spreadsheets, no numbers to organize or decks to revise. Just her small Harlem apartment, 2 blocks from the church she grew up in, with cracked tile in the bathroom and a view of a faded mural of jazz musicians from her bedroom window. Her mother called twice a day. Her brother sent silly memes. Tasha texted, "Take your time, we're holding it down." But Ava still struggled to breathe without guilt. Sitting on the couch, eating cereal at 11 a.m., she kept wondering if the world would forget her, if Lucas regretted the truth, if she had made everything harder by staying quiet too long, or by speaking too late. She hadn't cried yet. She hadn't let herself. But her body felt heavier now. Slower. And with each passing hour, it felt like something inside her was waiting to exhale. The knock came on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. Ava was wrapped in a blanket on the couch, half watching reruns of a courtroom drama she wasn't really paying attention to. She hadn't combed her hair that morning. Her sweats were 2 sizes too large. Her living room smelled faintly of peppermint oil and warm milk. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door halfway, heart skipping when she saw him standing there. Lucas, drenched in a long black coat, a paper bag in one hand and a bouquet of bright daisies, sunshine against the gloom. "Hi," he said simply, eyes scanning hers. Ava blinked. "What are you doing here? I figured if I sent a text you wouldn't respond." "You figured right." He offered a small smile and raised the bag. "I brought soup." Ava stared at the bag, then at him. "And flowers." She hesitated. The part of her that wanted to slam the door wrestled with the part that wanted to invite him in. After a pause, she stepped aside. Lucas entered slowly, cautious not to track water across her old hardwood floors. He glanced around, not judging, just observing. The space was small, lived in, warm. A few family photos lined the shelf near the TV, a baby blanket already folded on the chair, a list of baby names scribbled on a notepad near the fridge. "This is you," he said softly. Ava crossed her arms. "I know it's not much. It's everything," Lucas said, placing the soup and flowers on her kitchen counter. He didn't sit. He didn't speak again immediately. Instead, he looked at her the way he did when they first met, curious, present, and without pretense. "You don't have to do this alone," he said finally. And just like that, her strength cracked. The knock came on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. Ava was wrapped in a blanket on the couch, half watching reruns of a courtroom drama she wasn't really paying attention to. She hadn't combed her hair that morning. Her sweats were 2 sizes too large. Her living room smelled faintly of peppermint oil and warm milk. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door halfway, heart skipping when she saw him standing there. Lucas, drenched in a long black coat, a paper bag in one hand and a bouquet of bright daisies, sunshine against the gloom. "Hi," he said simply, eyes scanning hers. Ava blinked. "What are you doing here? I figured if I sent a text you wouldn't respond." "You figured right." He offered a small smile and raised the bag. "I brought soup." Ava stared at the bag, then at him. And flowers. She hesitated. The part of her that wanted to slam the door wrestled with the part that wanted to invite him in. After a pause, she stepped aside. Lucas entered slowly, cautious not to track water across her old hardwood floors. He glanced around, not judging, just observing. The space was small, lived in, warm. A few family photos lined the shelf near the TV, a baby blanket already folded on the chair, a list of baby names scribbled on a notepad near the fridge. "This is you," he said softly. Ava crossed her arms. "I know it's not much. It's everything," Lucas said, placing the soup and flowers on her kitchen counter. He didn't sit. He didn't speak again immediately. Instead, he looked at her the way he did when they first met. Curious, present, and without pretense. "You don't have to do this alone," he said finally. And just like that, her strength cracked. Ava sat on the edge of the couch, legs tucked beneath her, fingers gripping the mug of hot soup Lucas warmed up for her. It was chicken and rice. Comfort food. No spices, just warmth. He sat across from her in the armchair, coat now hung near the door, sleeves rolled up. He didn't try to fill the silence. He just sat there, quietly being present. "I haven't had company in 2 weeks," she finally said. "I didn't come as your boss." "I know," she replied. A pause. He leaned forward. "You haven't returned any of my calls. I didn't know what to say. You didn't need to say anything. But I needed to show up." She set the mug down slowly. "You keep doing that." "Doing what?" "Showing up." Lucas didn't respond right away. He stared at his hands, then back at her. "You've spent so much time holding everything together, I figured. Maybe you forgot how to let someone else help." Ava's throat tightened. "I'm not asking to fix it," Lucas added. "I just want to be part of it." She lowered her gaze. "This is hard, I know. You're from a world that doesn't understand mine. Then explain it to me." Ava finally looked up. His voice wasn't pitying. It wasn't performative. It was real. And for the first time, she realized she didn't need a hero. She just needed someone who stayed. The rain outside deepened into a soft rhythm against the windows. Ava sat back on the couch as Lucas slowly walked the small space between them and took a seat on the rug near her feet, leaning back against the couch. "Tell me something about your childhood," he asked. Ava raised a brow. "Why?" "Because I've shared boardrooms with you, deadlines, one very complicated elevator ride, but I don't know your 10-year-old self." She smirked faintly. "All right. I used to sell lemonade outside my church with my cousin, but we'd water it down to make more money." Lucas chuckled. "Smart. Terrible, but smart." "Your turn." He nodded. "My grandfather used to make me fix the fence every summer, one loose board, and he'd make me start over. Said if I ever wanted to lead people, I had to learn how to build something straight." Ava smiled faintly. "He sounds tough." He was. But he was also the only reason I ever believed in doing more than just inheriting something. Silence again, but softer this time. Lucas shifted. "Do you know what I was afraid of the day I found those vitamins in your drawer?" Ava looked at him. "That you didn't trust me enough to tell me." She blinked, slowly. "Do you know what I was afraid of?" He waited. "That you'd see me as a problem, not a person." Lucas swallowed hard. "I don't see you as either," he said. "I see you as the strongest person I've ever met." Ava didn't speak. She just leaned her head back against the couch, eyes closed, a tear escaping without a sound. Lucas reached up slowly, placed his hand on hers and whispered, "We'll figure this out. Together." The next evening, Ava found herself in the kitchen with Lucas, sleeves rolled up, wooden spoon in hand, peering into her rice pot like it held corporate secrets. "You're sure you didn't add too much water?" he asked, skeptical. Ava chuckled from the fridge. "Lucas, you make billion-dollar decisions, but rice has you rattled." "I deal with data, not steam." It was the first time in weeks she'd laughed, really laughed. A sound that felt foreign in her own space. The rice predictably burned. Smoke billowed up as Lucas scrambled for the fan. Ava fanned the air with a dish towel, coughing through laughter. Okay, we're officially banning you from the stove," she said. Lucas raised a hand in mock surrender. Noted. CEO of strategy, not seasoning. They settled for takeout, Chinese from the spot on 116th. Ava sat cross-legged on the couch, chopsticks in hand. Lucas joined her, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him, socks off, sleeves wrinkled. Halfway through the meal, Ava pulled a notepad from the coffee table. "All right. If we're doing this, we need to talk names." Lucas leaned in. "Already?" Ava raised an eyebrow. "You're the one who came with soup and daisies. You're in this now." He smirked. "Fair." She flipped the pad. "Girl names?" she offered. "Harper," he said instantly. "Strong, modern, easy to spell." Ava nodded slowly. "I like it." "And if it's a boy?" Lucas paused, thinking. "Julian," Ava smiled. "Julian or Harper. Either way, that baby's gonna have opinions." They laughed again, together this time. It was the kind of night that didn't need fixing. It just needed to exist. The following week, Ava had an appointment at Harlem Medical Center. Normally, she'd take the subway alone, keeping her head down and her belly protected by layers of outerwear. But when Lucas showed up at her door that morning, keys in hand, she didn't argue. The ride was quiet at first. Light jazz played through the car's speakers. Ava fiddled with the strap on her bag, while Lucas kept one hand on the wheel and the other steady on her energy. "I don't want the nurses thinking you're just here for show," she murmured. He glanced at her. "Then I guess I better act like I've been to one of these before." They checked in under her name. Lucas took a seat beside her in the waiting room, eyes flicking toward other expecting couples. Ava glanced around too, suddenly aware of how different they might look. But no one stared, not unkindly. During the ultrasound, Lucas stood just behind Ava as the nurse moved the wand gently across her stomach. The grainy screen filled with fluttering images. A small heartbeat echoed through the speakers, soft but strong. "That's our baby," Ava whispered. Lucas's hand instinctively moved to her shoulder. "It's real now." Later, as they left the clinic, Ava held the printed photo of the baby in her hand, staring down at the little curve that would one day be a person. "You coming to the next one?" she asked, without looking up. Lucas answered instantly. "All of them." The following days blurred together into a new rhythm, unspoken, gentle, and undeniable. Lucas started visiting more frequently, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with questions about parenting, sometimes just to listen. Ava didn't expect him to know how to fold baby clothes, but he tried. She didn't expect him to help organize her cabinets, but he offered. When she'd doze off mid-documentary, Lucas would lower the volume, stretch out quietly beside her, and let the moment live. It wasn't forced, it wasn't orchestrated, it just happened. One evening they sat on her fire escape with mugs of decaf tea, overlooking the street below. The sky was dull orange, the kind of New York sunset that didn't ask to be admired, but got admired anyway. "You ever think about how different our lives were before this?" Ava asked. Lucas nodded. "All the time. You grew up with stock portfolios and ski vacations. I grew up with food stamps and Sundays at Greater Zion." He didn't shrink from it. "I didn't choose my comfort," he said, "but I've never respected anyone the way I respect you." Ava turned to him, eyes soft. "Respect's a start." He didn't move closer. He didn't try to kiss her. But the tension hung there, charged, warm, mutual. A slow, sacred pull. Not lust, not obligation. Just want. And want was enough, for now. That night, Ava fell asleep with her head on Lucas's shoulder, the TV playing soft reruns in the background. No words were exchanged. No promises made. Just the quiet rise and fall of breath, a shared blanket, a moment untouched by the chaos of boardrooms or baby prep or social commentary. Lucas stayed still. He didn't pull her closer. He didn't take it further. He just stayed. At 2:16 a.m., Ava stirred. She blinked awake slowly, realizing her head had slid to his chest. "Sorry," she whispered, sitting up. "Don't be," Lucas said groggily. "You were out cold. I drooled on your shirt." He chuckled, glancing down. "It's a good look." She laughed, embarrassed but oddly comforted. Ava nodded, eyes heavy again. Lucas didn't kiss her goodnight. He didn't ask for anything. But as he stepped out and paused in the hallway, he let himself smile for a moment. Something real was building, slow, strong, and rooted in something deeper than obligation, and that was more than enough. Back at the office, Lucas called Blake into his office. "I want to redesign the West Wing corner suite," he said. Blake raised an eyebrow. "The one we use for rotating contractors?" Lucas nodded. "Not anymore." He opened his tablet and pulled up render sketches. Baby-safe flooring, adjustable desk, privacy glass, a separate mini lounge area. Blake studied the plans. "This is for Ava, isn't it?" Lucas didn't blink. She'll be back. But not into a space that forces her to pretend nothing's changed. Blake exhaled. You know this will cause noise. Let it, Lucas said. She's earned more than just space. She's earned grace. Over the next week, Lucas worked with design teams discreetly. No announcements. No memos. Just quiet preparation. He asked for soft lighting, a nearby private restroom, a nursing nook in the back. He included a shelf for baby books, framed ultrasound photos, or whatever Ava chose to bring. When the space was nearly done, he stood in the center and imagined her sitting there, head high, belly rounding, running numbers like she always did. Unbothered, unapologetic, unmoved by whispers. He smiled to himself. She wouldn't return to the job she left. She'd return to one redefined for her. The morning Ava returned to Williams' corporate group, the office buzzed with quiet energy. She walked through the lobby with her head held high, her maternity blazer tailored, her black flats clicking softly on the marble floor. Her belly now curved gently forward, visible, undeniable, proud. Security smiled as she scanned her badge. Good to have you back, Miss Jones. She nodded, offering a soft smile, and took the elevator to the 23rd floor. When the doors opened, conversations slowed. Some stared. Some looked away quickly. A few offered short, polite nods. But Ava, she didn't flinch. She walked past every glass door, every hallway where whispers once trailed her name, and made her way to the West Wing, where her new workspace waited. Lucas had made sure of it. It was quiet, private, beautiful. A height-adjustable desk, a cozy chair with lumbar support, a sleek lounge nook with neutral tones, and a small throw pillow that read, "Breathe, then rise." Her initials were etched on the office door plaque. She stood inside, alone for a moment, and let her hand rest over her belly. "You're home, baby girl," she whispered. And with that, she logged into her terminal and resumed the life she built, this time without hiding. Ava's first meeting back was a department-wide budget review. She arrived 5 minutes early, notes prepared, tablet fully charged. Her hair was in a low bun. No makeup, no extra layers, just Ava, fully present. Lucas entered moments later, greeted the room, then took his place at the head of the table. When it came time to discuss the upcoming third-quarter resource allocations, Ava spoke with ease. Based on our prior metrics, I suggest a flexible structure, one that absorbs unexpected vendor delays while still protecting profit margins. A few junior staffers glanced around. Was she really just going to resume like nothing had changed? Lucas leaned forward. Ava, can you expand on that proposal? She nodded and tapped her tablet. Here's a model that reduces second-quarter overspending by 8%, redirects 5% into R&D, and gives operations a buffer without increasing overall costs. The room went silent, not in awkwardness, in admiration. One exec cleared his throat. That's sharper than our last projection, Lucas spoke up, because Ava sharpens everything she touches. Heads turned. Ava stayed poised. That moment wasn't loud, but it was louder than gossip. Lucas didn't just let her back in the room, he amplified her, and with every meeting, every slide, every confident pitch, Ava reclaimed her voice. At first, the whispers tried to hold on. She really came back? Bold. You think she's still gunning for the VP track? But something shifted. It wasn't just Lucas's public support. It was Ava's quiet consistency, the way she showed up, delivered, and never once let pity paint her presence. People watched as she led meetings, mentored interns, solved client issues within minutes, and gave clear, calm direction. She never flaunted her closeness with Lucas. She never corrected assumptions. She simply performed, like she always had. And slowly, respect grew. One afternoon, a junior analyst named Mariah approached her after a product review. I just wanted to say, watching you balance everything like this, it's inspiring. Ava paused, surprised. Thank you, she said, voice steady. Mariah smiled. They said you were out for personal leave, but now I see you and you're the definition of grace under pressure. The compliment wasn't dramatic. It wasn't performative. It was earned. And as Ava returned to her desk, she felt the shift fully settle. Whispers may travel fast, but respect builds roots. Not everyone was clapping. During a strategy session with the executive committee, one older VP, Raymond Clark, tried to interrupt Ava mid-presentation. Let's be honest, he said, leaning back. We should reconsider her projections. Given her condition, it's understandable that she might be distracted or off her game. The room fell silent. Ava froze. Her fingers gripped the remote in her hand, heart pounding. Lucas didn't wait. He stood. "Raymond," he said, voice low and even, "if I ever hear you imply that pregnancy diminishes intelligence or performance again, I will personally escort you out of this company." Raymond blinked. "This is Williams' corporate group," Lucas continued. "We don't punish women for showing up fully. We don't question their value because they're carrying life." He turned toward Ava. "You may continue." Ava breathed in slowly, looked at the chart behind her, and resumed as though nothing had shaken her. But inside, something locked into place. She wasn't just tolerated, she was protected. Weeks passed. Ava and Lucas worked seamlessly, late-night edits, early morning budget calls, quiet brainstorms with coffee and split muffins. They didn't need to speak much. Their flow was intuitive. Lucas trusted her insights more than most VPs. Ava, in turn, trusted his judgment more than she thought she ever would again. Together, they pushed through 2 client negotiations, restructured the CRM rollout, and prepped the company's largest pitch of the year. At one point, Blake walked into their meeting and said, "You two are operating like a mind meld." Ava smirked. "Efficiency is our love language." Lucas raised an eyebrow, amused. Their synergy wasn't forced. It wasn't romantic on the surface, but it carried a closeness that no one could deny. They challenged each other, elevated each other, and when Ava presented the final forecast for fourth quarter with her signature clarity, Lucas leaned back and nodded. "This is your best work yet," she smiled. "It's only the beginning." It started with a simple question over morning coffee. "You've met my world," Lucas said as they walked out of the elevator. "Let me meet yours," Ava smirked. "You've seen Harlem," he chuckled. "I mean the other way around. I want you to meet mine." Ava paused. He didn't say it casually. There was no smirk or light-heartedness in his tone. This wasn't about brunch, it was about roots, about legacy. "Your family?" she asked. Lucas nodded. "My mother's hosting a charity luncheon this weekend. It's in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. I want you there." Ava's pulse picked up. Lucas Williams, the billionaire CEO raised in elite white New England society, wanted her, a visibly pregnant black woman from Baltimore, to sit with his family on their manicured lawn with linen napkins and fine china. She hesitated, staring at the floor before meeting his eyes again. "You sure that's a good idea?" "I'm sure it's the right one," he replied. He wasn't asking for her to impress anyone. He was asking her to stand with him, and deep down, Ava knew it was time to stop hiding. So she said yes. The estate was as grand as she expected. Columned porches, sprawling hedges, an outdoor dining setup that looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Ava stepped out of the car in a cream maternity dress that hugged her bump just right. Hair pulled back in soft curls, low heels, pearl studs, understated, elegant. But nothing could fully prepare her for the stairs. The guests, all polished, white and effortlessly well-bred, paused their conversations as Lucas escorted her through the garden. She felt the weight of every glance, heard the unspoken questions in every polite smile. Lucas leaned in, whispering, "Ignore them, they'll adjust." But Ava wasn't made of stone. She noticed the subtle space they gave her at the table, the way some conversations faded when she joined a circle, the pointed way someone asked, "And what do you do, besides being a mother?" Still, Ava didn't shrink. She answered each question with warmth and confidence, spoke about finance, market forecasts, community engagement. She even made one of Lucas's uncles laugh over a story about subway delays in Harlem. She wasn't there to perform. She was there to be present. Still, the divide was real. Country club traditions, old family names, conversations about polo and international boarding schools. Everything smelled like generational power. Ava wasn't intimidated, but she wasn't blind either. She belonged, not because they approved, but because Lucas stood beside her with no apologies. They found her on the terrace, posture regal, glass of white wine in hand. Celeste Whitmore Williams was the definition of old money elegance. Silver hair in a neat twist, linen skirt suit pressed to perfection, and a face that had long since learned how to smile without warmth. "Mother," Lucas said, placing a gentle hand on Ava's back. "You remember Ava?" Celeste's smile was tight. "I remember the announcement." Her eyes dropped briefly to Ava's belly. Ava offered a courteous smile. "It's lovely to meet you properly." Celeste nodded, but said nothing in return. Lucas stepped forward. "I know this isn't how you envision things, but I'm not asking for your approval." Celeste's brows lifted slightly. Then why bring her here? Because I want my child to grow up around family, and that means starting now. Celeste sipped her wine. Do you think this is sustainable? Ava held her breath. Lucas didn't flinch. It's not about sustainability, it's about sincerity. And I've never been more certain of anything. Celeste finally turned to Ava, expression unreadable. You carry yourself well, she said, but understand, the world we live in is not always kind. I don't expect kindness, Ava replied evenly. Just the space to raise my child in truth. Celeste said nothing more, but Lucas slipped his hand into Ava's and held it tightly. That said everything. Later that afternoon, Ava stood near the fountain in the garden as guests trickled away. Celeste approached again, this time alone. You handled yourself better than most women I've seen under this roof, she said. Ava didn't look surprised. I've had practice, she said calmly. I've worked twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. This isn't new. Celeste gave a small nod, more acknowledgement than approval. I suppose it's only fair you know, she added. I judged you based on headlines, not substance. Ava met her gaze directly. I don't need you to like me, but I will always be civil, for Lucas, for this child. Celeste studied her a moment longer. Then she did something unexpected. She offered her hand. Ava shook it, firm, proud, steady. As they parted, Lucas joined Ava's side and wrapped his arm gently around her back. Well, he asked. She's tough, Ava said. So are you. They drove back to Harlem in silence for the first 20 minutes, not out of tension but reflection. Ava had stood her ground, and Lucas had never looked prouder. It started with a mild cramp, sharp but manageable, just after 10:30 a.m. Ava was in the conference room reviewing updated numbers for the firm's fourth-quarter outlook. Blake was mid-presentation, Lucas seated beside her, quietly noting changes on his tablet. The second wave hit harder. Ava blinked, steadying herself. Her breath shortened. Tasha, seated across the room, tilted her head. You good? Ava nodded once, gripping the edge of the table. But by the time the third contraction came, there was no pretending. Her pen slipped from her fingers. Lucas noticed immediately. Ava, I think. She exhaled, then hissed through her teeth. It's time. Chairs scraped back. Blake stood quickly. Tasha rushed to her side. Call the car, Lucas ordered. No, Ava muttered, trying to stand. Don't make it a scene. You're in labor, Ava. This is the scene. Another contraction buckled her knees. Lucas caught her before she hit the ground, lowering her gently into the chair. The room emptied in seconds. Security cleared a path to the garage. Ava breathed through the pain, fingers digging into Lucas's arm as he guided her into the back seat of his private car. Don't pass out, she warned him between breaths. Just breathe, Ava. I'm right here. As the driver pulled onto 6th Avenue, Ava clutched Lucas's hand tighter than she ever had. At the exact moment Lucas was supposed to pitch to an international syndicate on a $1 billion expansion fund, he was pacing the maternity wing hallway of Harlem Medical Center, his phone vibrating non-stop and in his back pocket. Blake called twice, legal texted, PR emailed. He ignored them all. Inside, Ava was being prepped. Her blood pressure was stable, contractions growing closer. The nurses moved quickly, professionally, but even their calm couldn't touch the storm inside Lucas. He'd never felt so helpless. He wasn't afraid of the markets. He wasn't shaken by crises. But this was different. Tasha arrived with Ava's overnight bag just as Lucas ended a quick call. She all right? Tasha asked. Lucas nodded. They said she's strong, but I'm not leaving. You've got that investor call today. Lucas looked down the hallway toward Ava's room. Let them wait. He pulled out his phone and called Blake. Cancel it. Blake's voice crackled. You serious? I'm at the hospital. She's in labor. Tell them we'll reschedule. There was a pause. Understood. Lucas hung up. No regret, no second-guessing. There was only one thing that mattered now. Inside that room was the woman who changed his world and the child who would carry their name. And he wasn't going to miss their first breath for anything on earth. The delivery room was quiet, save for the rhythmic beep of machines and Ava's sharp, controlled breathing. Her forehead glistened with sweat. Her hair had come loose from its pin, curls stuck to her cheek. But her focus never wavered. Lucas stood at her side, gloved and gowned, whispering calm encouragement. You've got this. Just one push at a time. Easy for you to say, she muttered, teeth clenched. A nurse chuckled. She's doing great. Ava gripped Lucas's hand so tightly he lost feeling in his fingers, but didn't flinch. The doctor called for the final round. Okay, Ava, one more strong push. Let's meet this baby. Ava nodded, face contorted in effort, pain, and something deeper, power. She pushed. And then, in the stillness that followed, a cry, tiny, loud, fierce. Lucas blinked. A nurse announced, "It's a girl." They placed the baby on Ava's chest. Her tiny fists curled. Her body trembled with fresh life. Ava stared down at her, whispering, "Hi, Harper. Welcome." Lucas couldn't move. His hand hovered over them both, unsure if he was worthy of touching this moment. Ava looked up at him, eyes glassy. "You want to hold her?" He nodded, swallowing hard. The nurse guided the baby into his arms. Lucas stared at her, eyes blinking slowly, mouth slightly open, completely undone. She was perfect, so small, so alive, so his. They cleaned her up, measured her, wrapped her in a soft pink blanket with hospital tags that read, Harper Jones Williams, 6 lbs 13 ounces. Her cries had softened into little sighs as she lay swaddled in Ava's arms. The nurses gave them space. Tasha peeked in, eyes filled with joy, then quickly left to give them the room they needed. Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, one hand brushing against Harper's tiny fingers. "She's real," he whispered. Ava nodded slowly. "I know." They sat like that for several minutes. No phones, no noise, just the sound of a new life breathing between them. "She has your nose," Ava said, smiling faintly. Lucas chuckled. "Poor kid. Don't start. Can I say something without ruining the moment? Try me. I didn't know I needed her. Until now." Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. Harper stirred lightly, her lips parting, eyes still shut. Ava leaned her head against Lucas's shoulder. "We did good," she said. "Yeah," Lucas whispered. "We really did. It happened after the nurse brought in the birth certificate forms." Ava was resting, eyes closed, one arm loosely cradling Harper. Lucas stood at the window, the form in his hand. Father's name, Lucas Whitmore Williams' mother's name, Ava Yvonne Jones' child's name, Harper Ava Jones Williams. He stared at it, emotions rising fast. Pride, fear, gratitude, love. He looked back at Ava and Harper, both asleep now. Peace on their faces. The kind of peace he'd spent his whole life trying to earn through ambition. But it was here, silent and still, wrapped in a hospital blanket. His throat tightened, tears came suddenly, not loud, not messy, just steady, honest. He turned slightly so Ava wouldn't see. Shoulders trembling, hand covering his face. He wasn't crying from pressure. He was crying because the weight of love finally caught up to him. When Ava stirred, she opened her eyes and saw him. "Hey," she whispered softly. Lucas turned, wiping his face quickly. "I'm sorry, I just—" She reached out her hand. He took it, and said nothing more. He didn't need to. The days after Harper's birth passed in a gentle blur. Ava lay nestled in a warm hospital bed, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf, her skin glowing with a mix of fatigue and fulfillment. The pain had been intense, but the reward now lay swaddled in soft pink beside her, a healthy baby girl with almond-shaped eyes and the faintest dimple in her cheek. Harper Jones Williams. It still didn't feel real. Lucas had barely left her side since the birth. He slept in the uncomfortable armchair every night, changed more diapers than the nurses asked, and even managed to swaddle Harper like a pro after watching 3 YouTube tutorials on the hospital's weak Wi-Fi. Ava glanced over at him now, seated by the window in jeans and a white hoodie, his eyes heavy but watchful. He wasn't the polished CEO in a tailored navy suit right now. He was just Lucas, father, partner, the man who dropped everything for her. "Stop looking at me like that," Ava said softly, a teasing smile curving her lips. Lucas blinked out of his trance. "Like what?" "Like you still can't believe we made her." He stood, walking over to her side and gazing down at Harper's sleeping form. "Because I can't," he murmured. "She's perfect, and so are you." Ava gave a small laugh, then winced. "Still sore?" he asked, gently adjusting the pillows behind her. "Only every part of me," she said, resting back. "But I'm good. I'm at peace." Lucas nodded, then sat beside her. "Ava, I've never seen strength like what you showed in that room. Not in a boardroom, not in battle. That was something sacred." She turned to him, eyes soft. "We've come a long way, haven't we? We've barely started, Lucas said, then took a deep breath. And I want to do this right. At your pace. Your way. Ava blinked at his tone, serious and emotional. What are you saying? But Lucas only smiled faintly and reached for something in his coat pocket. Lucas held the box in his palm, a small, elegant square of deep navy velvet with a soft gold trim. Ava stared at it, her heartbeat quickening. Lucas? He didn't open it right away. Instead, he looked at her the way a man looks at the woman who saved his life, because she had. I know this might look like a proposal, he said gently, but it's not yet. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, not in offense, but curiosity. This, he said, opening the box slowly, is a promise. Inside sat a delicate band, rose gold, understated, elegant, just like her. In the center, a small diamond, not loud, not screaming, just glowing. I didn't want to propose just because we had a baby, or because I love you, though I do, madly. I wanted this to be about honoring your strength, honoring us. Ava swallowed, speechless. You gave me a daughter. You gave me a truth I wasn't brave enough to see, and you gave me you. So I'm promising to show up, every day, fully, until you're ready for something more. He paused. If marriage is in our future, it'll be your yes that makes it sacred, not the world's expectations. Ava blinked back tears. You really mean this isn't a proposal? Lucas chuckled, taking her hand and sliding the ring onto her finger anyway. No pressure, no timelines. Just love. She let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. You are something else, Lucas Williams. Something better, I hope. She looked down at the ring, her heart swelling. Yes, she whispered. Better. 2 days later, Ava was discharged. She moved slowly through the doors of the hospital, Harper bundled to her chest in a soft fleece wrap, Lucas carrying the flowers, balloons, and cards from the room. They looked like a family, and in truth, they were. At home, in her Harlem apartment, still cozy and warm, still hers, Lucas adjusted the bassinet by the window. We could stay in Connecticut if you want, he said. My mother offered the guest wing. Ava arched a brow. And share walls with the Daughters of the Republican Confederacy. He laughed. Okay, fair. Scratch that. I'm not ready to merge lives yet, Lucas. I need to find my rhythm with Harper, with myself. He nodded. Then that's what we do. Later that evening, Harper finally fell asleep. Ava sat on the couch in her bathrobe, hair loose and damp, ring glinting on her finger. Lucas passed her a mug of warm chamomile tea. You okay? I'm more than okay, she said. You gave me something that wasn't an expectation. You gave me honor. That ring, it wasn't pressure. It was peace. He leaned in, brushing her cheek. Marriage can come later. This right here, this is what I want first, peace with you. Ava touched his chest. You're changing. He kissed her gently, because you changed everything. 2 weeks later, Ava returned to the office, not for work, but for a surprise. Tasha had planned it all. The conference room was decorated in pastel balloons and gold streamers. A banner read, Welcome Baby Harper, and a cake sat center table shaped like a laptop with a tiny baby crawling across the keyboard. Oh no, Ava said, laughing as she walked in. Tasha, what is all this? Tasha, wearing a faux momager sash, waved a pink feather wand. Girl, this is your corporate baby shower. You thought we'd let Harper enter this world without a little office drama? Blake was in the corner, already covered in baby powder from the diaper dash race. Lucas stood by the glass wall, clapping along as Ava was blindfolded and made to guess baby food flavors. Peas. Wrong. That was mango and spinach, Tasha announced. Ava gagged. Everyone laughed. Even stoic Mr. Denton from finance cracked a grin. Ava held Harper on her lap as the team passed around gifts. Organic onesies, a corporate-themed rattle, and even a mini CEO nameplate that read Harper J. Williams, future boss. Lucas raised a toast. To Ava, to motherhood, and to the kind of love that builds legacies quietly. The room applauded. Ava looked around, from secrecy and shame to laughter and light. Her baby, her team, her man. She felt whole. That night, Ava and Lucas stood on the rooftop of their building. Harper slept downstairs with her grandmother, visiting from Baltimore. The city's skyline stretched wide and gold before them. Lucas held Ava's hand, fingers interlocked with hers. No more hiding, she whispered. Never again, he said, lifting her hand to kiss it. They had started in secrecy, born out of one imperfect night, grown through fear, choice, truth, and responsibility. Now, love lived in the open, not flashy, not performative, but real, quiet, present, and strong. Because love, when it's no longer hidden, becomes a foundation, not a secret, not a scandal, but a story worth telling. And Ava, standing there, ring glinting in the moonlight, knew this was just the beginning. 3 weeks after Harper's birth, Ava stood before the floor-length mirror in her apartment, gently smoothing down her soft, cream-colored blouse. Her curves had shifted, her sleep schedule was non-existent, and yet there was a light in her eyes she hadn't seen in months. She was back, not all the way, but enough to reclaim a piece of herself outside of bottles and lullabies. Lucas had offered her a year off, no questions asked, but she missed the rhythm of the office, the energy, the way her mind danced between creative campaigns and market data. And truth be told, she wanted Harper to grow up seeing a mother who didn't disappear behind sacrifice. The moment Ava stepped into the Williams & Moore building lobby, heads turned, not because of her outfit, but because she walked like someone who had given birth to power. "Miss Jones Williams," the receptionist beamed. "Welcome back," Ava chuckled softly. "It's part-time. I'm not a superhero." But she was, just not the kind with a cape. She walked past the mirrored hallway and into the glass elevator, thinking of how she'd break up her day. Mornings in office, afternoons at home with Harper, and remote Fridays. It was a start. Tasha practically tackled her when she entered the 26th floor. "Look at you, Mama Ava is back and glowing." They embraced, tighter than co-workers usually did. "You really gonna balance a baby and branding?" Tasha teased. Ava smirked. "Watch me." It was Friday, Ava's first remote day, but Lucas had other plans. He sent a car with a car seat and instructions, "Bring Harper to the office, just for lunch." Ava rolled her eyes at first but laughed as she dressed Harper in the outfit Tasha had sent over last week. A custom-tailored miniature navy blue blazer with gold buttons and a pocket square that matched Lucas's signature ties. "I cannot believe I'm doing this," Ava whispered to Harper, securing her in the car seat. "You better not spit up on the conference table." As soon as they arrived, Harper became the unofficial CEO of cuteness. Executives peeked from their glass offices. Assistants abandoned keyboards. Even the normally stone-faced Mr. Valencia from legal cracked a smile. "Is she wearing a blazer?" he asked, blinking. Ava nodded proudly. "Custom." Lucas walked out of his corner office, pausing like he'd just seen the sun for the first time. "I'm sorry, is this even legal?" he said, scooping Harper into his arms. "She looks better dressed than me." "You should be worried," Ava replied. "She might take your job." Everyone laughed, but Ava watched Lucas closely. The way he held Harper wasn't performative. He wasn't showing off for employees. He cradled her like he was still in disbelief that something so perfect had come from them. That afternoon, Lucas shut down the executive boardroom and transformed it into a catered lunch space. No suits, no slides, no spreadsheets. Just colleagues, friends, and a baby in a blazer stealing hearts. Lucas stood at the head of the table, wearing a deep grey sweater and no tie, intentionally soft. His eyes landed on Ava, who had Harper nestled in her lap and a bottle warming beside a cup of herbal tea. "I asked you all here," Lucas began, voice calm but strong, because this woman redefined what leadership looks like. Ava raised an eyebrow but let him continue. "Before Ava came into my life, I built companies. Now, I'm building a family." The room quieted. She brought life to a boardroom, courage to a closed door, and heart to a heart that didn't know how to love properly. Tasha's eyes welled up. Even one of the interns blinked rapidly. "This isn't a promotion speech. It's not an HR initiative. It's just appreciation." Lucas turned toward Ava. "Thank you for coming back. You didn't have to. And thank you for letting us love Harper the way we already love you." Ava smiled, lips trembling slightly. The room clapped, but it wasn't loud. It was warm, like rain against a rooftop. After the applause died down, Ava stood, rocking Harper gently as she spoke. "I almost didn't come back," she began. "Not because I don't love this job. I do. But motherhood changes you in ways no handbook can prepare you for." She glanced around the room. "But then I remembered something Lucas once told me. The strongest people are the ones who dare to return. So here I am, not to be strong but to be present, as a mother, as a partner, as a professional." Her eyes met Lucas's, "And I'm glad I did. Because today, I'm not just returning to work. I'm returning to people who make work feel like purpose. Another soft applause. Tasha added, "Well, now that you've made us all cry, let's eat." Laughter broke the emotional spell. Plates were passed. Baby Harper gurgled at the sound of glasses clinking. Ava fed Harper from a bottle while Lucas passed her a plate. In that moment, surrounded by co-workers turned family, Ava felt something she hadn't expected. Wholeness. The lunch was wrapping up when Lucas stood again, holding a glass of sparkling cider. Everyone followed. "I'd like to end this with a toast." He looked at Harper first, then at Ava. "You've changed my life, Ava Jones-Williams, not with a contract, not with a campaign, but with truth." He took a breath. "You showed me that love isn't a strategy, it's a surrender, and because of you I'm no longer the man who used to fear commitment." A pause. "I'm better, and that's on you." He turned to the room. "To mothers, to courage, to beginnings we never planned for, but will never regret." The team lifted their glasses. Ava's hand tightened around his under the table. The last scene of the day wasn't grand. It was Ava. In her office, Harper snoozing in a bassinet, and Lucas sitting beside her with his laptop off. They were working, but differently now. Side by side. No secrets, no shame, only the quiet beauty of what they had become. The city buzzed below like a restless sea of movement, ambition and stories, some beginning, some breaking. On the 47th floor of the Williams Global building, Ava stood silently, one hand resting gently on the glass, the other wrapped around the warm curve of her waist where Harper once kicked months ago. She wasn't the same woman who'd stepped into the firm 2 years ago, a temp secretary afraid of being seen, constantly adjusting her blouse to hide the curve of early pregnancy, her eyes never quite meeting Lucas's in the hallway. That Ava had dreams, but no voice, strength, but no space to show it. Her reflection ghosted back at her in the glass, stronger now, steadier, wrapped in confidence she had to earn. This wasn't just a job. This had become her story of rising without shortcuts. She blinked away the mist gathering in her eyes, remembering the sleepless nights on her cousin's couch, those clinic visits alone, and the heart-pounding mornings hiding her nausea with mint gum. And yet here she was now, Harper's mom. The woman Lucas Williams stood beside. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft coo. Turning, she smiled at the sound. Lucas held their daughter like the treasure she was, cradled in his arms, tiny hands curled around his pinky, soft, wavy hair, peeking from under a baby-sized headband. It wasn't just the view from this floor that had changed, it was everything beneath it. Just a year ago, Ava had been hidden behind an office cubicle, typing memos, dodging questions, and praying her truth wouldn't ruin her. Now, she was being honored at a staff luncheon, the very place where whispers used to follow her, now echoed with applause. Ava walked into the Williams Global Conference Room, stunned by the sight. Streamers read to new beginnings in soft lavender, her favorite color. Tasha had gone all out. Photos of Ava through the years at the company flashed across a digital display. Her first ID badge, the staff retreat, the casual Friday where she wore sneakers and still closed 3 back-end accounts. Her desk neighbors stood clapping. The HR manager gave her a bouquet. Even grumpy Mr. Peterson from legal gave her a polite nod. Lucas stood at the front of the room, waiting with Harper in his arms. The way he looked at Ava was no longer just admiration. It was pride, respect, unspoken gratitude. As she stepped forward, a thunder of applause rose behind her, and Ava realized she had not only survived the storm, she had become someone others looked up to. She wasn't just accepted, she was celebrated. And it meant everything. Fear used to sit beside Ava during every lunch break, fear of discovery, judgment, loss. She remembered avoiding eye contact in the hallways, afraid someone would recognize the baby in her belly and the CEO who passed her coffee with a smirk. But Lucas had changed that. He didn't just love her behind closed doors, he claimed her in conference rooms, comforted her in front of board members, and never once flinched when people stared. At the luncheon, when Harper giggled and reached for Ava mid-toast, Lucas stepped back and let Ava take the center. He didn't need the spotlight. He just needed her to shine. Then came the moment that froze every eye in the room. Lucas reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a small navy box, not the typical engagement ring box. No grand Neil, no glittering diamond, just a promise ring, warm with simplicity. He stepped closer. "Ava," he began, his voice husky but certain, "marriage can come later, but this is to honor the woman who gave me a daughter and taught me how to be a man." Tears welled up in Ava's eyes. The room held its breath. She whispered yes, not just to the ring, but to being loved boldly, fearlessly. The sun cast a soft golden hue across the 47th floor office that afternoon. After the event, Lucas led Ava back to his executive suite, not for meetings, not for memos, but to sit together, to breathe, to reflect. He stood behind her as she stared out the window again, just as she had hours before. Only now, his hand rested on her shoulder, reassuring, present, constant. Harper, in his arms, babbled softly, one fist in her mouth, the other gripping Lucas's cufflink like it belonged to her. "I remember when I didn't think I'd ever be good enough for this," Ava whispered. Lucas leaned down, kissed her shoulder. "You were always more than enough. I was just late realizing it." Their eyes met in the window's reflection. She turned to him, resting her hand over his. "Do you regret how it all started?" "Only that I didn't see you sooner," he replied without hesitation. "We didn't just make a baby, Ava. We built something stronger than this entire company." They both looked down at Harper, who chose that exact moment to spit up on Lucas's tailored blazer. Ava burst out laughing. Lucas groaned. Guess she's already claiming her territory. And just like that, the most serious man in the building became the softest. Later that night, as the office quieted and staff filtered out with party favors, Ava stood alone once more, this time not in silence, but in peace. She held Harper, rocking her gently as lullabies hummed from a Bluetooth speaker. Lucas had stepped away to grab their coats. Her eyes trailed across the skyline, back to the window, 47 floors above the city, where she once lived paycheck to paycheck. Now she had more than stability. She had belonging, purpose, love that didn't hide. Lucas returned, coat in one hand, her promise ring box in the other, just to remind her again, forever doesn't rush, it shows up. They left the office as a family. And as the elevator doors closed, Ava whispered, "We didn't just make a baby, Lucas. We built a new legacy. If this story touched you, share it with someone who believes in second chances. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below."